Oh boy, this one's a doozy, y'all. This one's a doozy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This one's a doozy. Okay. All right. Hold on. Gatekeeping for self-preservation. Okay. I was looking at two things. I'm gonna share my screen really quick. Okay. And no, nothing against these people. But I'm gonna show y'all what I was looking at, right? I looked at this from Pace Morby. All right. And the good work he's doing. But then there was one thing that he said, which I think came, obviously came out of a form of programming. I'm like, that's interesting that people say that. And it was this line, let me see here, right here.
Like so many new people do.
This part.
She would ask questions she did not deserve to know the answer to.
All right, that part. And he gets why.
Just like so many new people do. Like, oh, why are you buying a modular home company? Like, is that something I should be doing? Maddie, I don't even know it's something I should be doing. Like,
okay, so we're going to stop right there.
Why would you even ask that question?
Boom. All right, so he says he doesn't know because he's not sure, obviously, as a business person, whether it be a good investment or not, right? But, that's taking the risk. It's part of taking risk. Now, we're going to go, so kudos to the work he's doing. Kudos to Maddie, all right, for I give kudos to everyone who is moving forward in their creative process, in their development, as we continue to evolve as humans. Now I'm going to go over here, right? And I typed this in. And listen to this is what showed up. And this is what Kanye says on this.
Pac, at a certain point, he just had to message and hand the baton. He's like, I might not be here.
I may not change the world, but I may spark the seed in somebody else that may change the world.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The problem is, obviously, self-preservation is the first law of nature. But people won't hand over codes completely to the next generation out of just protecting themselves.
When I heard that, okay, cool. All right, so now we'll go back to me here. When I heard that, I was like, whoa, wait. Yeah, that's true. There's still that survival instinct people have that some are still evolving from. Now, part of this survival instinct, let's be honest, has been pushed on because when we look at the economies and communities, and I guess you could say because of the evolution of humans, this survival instinct has been reflected in communities and tribes, right? But there's a big difference between tribes that thrive, ancient peoples who continue to thrive, all right, and those who evolve, and those who have a harder time, and the effect that it has, or that the effect of such gatekeeping has on upcoming generations. Look where we are. While some of us are at ease, having returned to nature, there's still the economic spectrum that is challenged for a lot of people, okay? So the idea, this concept of self-preservation, in a way, is a very primitive, almost lower chakra, you could say, survival mentality. In order for us to thrive, you have to be able to evolve, which means you have to be able to also comprehend certain things, energy, frequency, relationships, behavioral patterns, okay? That's how you become smart and intelligent. You grow in your wisdom, in your spiritual wisdom, your emotional wisdom, your intellectual wisdom. So that way you know how to move, you know how to transmute, how to be an alchemist, so that things that may spur out of, or anyone who may come to anyone, or someone who is maybe like living on a frequency of self-preservation and fear, can rise above that. Now, yes, we have to look at also the economy. We have to look at how we have created economies. I have said it before in my videos. The way we treat economies, aka the constructs, needs to be redefined. And it is evolving to be a little more simpler, but there's still a lot of work to do. It needs to be redefined, because if the economy and the things of that construct are what determine our potential to thrive, then we have a big issue as humans. Okay? Now, people will say, well, you got to look at history and then the wars and blah, blah, blah. And like, listen, that's a group of people. That doesn't mean everybody. Well, evil will always try to go into some people might say, well, evil will try to always find those who are at peace. And I'm like, I can relate with that. Yeah. But that doesn't stop me from knowing what I need to do. That doesn't stop me from sharing. Okay. As many times as I don't want to share. Okay. As many times as I tell myself, "Oh, I don't give a fuck about anybody. Why the fuck should I? Why the fuck should I care about involving people and how they treat the economy and how they treat this thing called finance, this construct? Why should I care? I live in a magical way. I live magic. I live in a magical way. I am never without anything that I need. Neither is my dog. Now, when it comes to building the things that I'm doing in the world of commerce, there's things that need to be done. However, those things that need to be done don't take away from the peace of mind that I have gained, that have regained or reconnected to. Okay? The abundance that I am connected with. So I could be on that. Well, I don't need to give a fuck. No, let them all find out the hard way. Okay? Let them figure it out. Like some of my parents would try to tell me, go figure it out. Guess what? I figured it out, and they're still trying to figure it out. They're still stuck in the economic spiral, the economic loop. I tell you, every time a high level convo. Not all the time, but for the most part, there are plenty of times where I'm having a high level convo or I'm talking about high level things and noise has to come up. But it's not in me. So it's not in me to ignore what needs to be said. Okay? So I found that very interesting. Self-preservation. Okay? And how a lot of entrepreneurs and people don't say things or don't do things out of self-preservation. But you see, if you are connected with nature truly, okay? If you let love guide you truly, then not only do you grow in your power and your wisdom, you also grow in your intellect. So you know how to do exactly what needs to be done. You know how to elevate others while preserving yourself. The key word, again, you know how to elevate others while preserving yourself. Because to preserve yourself, honestly speaking, see, when people think preserve themselves, they have attached the concept of preserve themselves to mean something economic, financial. Preservation has nothing to do with the economy or finance. Self-preservation has nothing to do with the economy or finance. The human is the only one that thinks that self-preservation has something to do with the economy and finance. That if we can't preserve our economies, then we are doomed for extinction or doomed for failure. Yet, you have all the animals, which is why, again, like I said in other videos, when I talked about the root chakra and transmuting those root chakras, yet you have the animal realm, okay, the other creatures or our other earthly kin brothers and sisters, okay, in different form. You have them that they thrive. Not to say that they haven't faced any challenges, but they are thriving. Thriving so much that people are drawn to them. So the human is complicating what self-preservation is and using self-preservation as a tool or as a shield of defense based off of fear versus using self-preservation as a tool and a shield of defense based off of unity, for example, or thriving. In other words, instead of using this concept of self-preservation as a fearful thing of me versus you, self-preservation is a more of an active thing. Like, for example, what can we do to continuously self-preserve our health? Easy. Plant gardens of food, plant all of that, get in touch with nature's animals, get in touch with nature's plant herbs and medicines. Okay, some of you may need ayahuasca, not to better your businesses, but to better your connection to the earth and how you even consider or look, how you perceive an economy, finance, and what is important and what you value. Because as I said before, especially with the mega project, creativity is infinite. You see people play video games and they earn credits, and the credits are simply there to customize gear. And the customization never ends because there's always amazing designs, right? That is a testament that basically says there's always going to be something to do. But right now, and there's always other things to do as well. But what for most people, what those things are is how can I make more money? Even though we all have the money already, because in essence, credit, all money is credit. And in essence, all credit is an infinite value. And that infinite value, in essence, is within us. And in essence, is within nature. And that is nature's essence. Even though we have that, our economy has I wouldn't say our, but most people's and many nations' economies or communities stem off the success of it, stem off of how much more money it can make. There was that famous video that talked about the GDP and how ridiculous GDP sounds. Global domestic product. And the global domestic product was tied to a unit of measurements of dollar signs. And some would say, it has been said by certain economic experts, okay, experts in economy, yeah, right. Anyways, it's been said by certain economists that the global GDP of certain countries outside of the US is low. Yet, those countries, for many of those countries, their people eat well, everyone takes care, they take care of nature. So what's going on? You got to learn something from everybody, right? And you have to find that balance in between. We cannot continue, if for humans to evolve, we cannot continue to operate out of this fear, self-preservation mentality. Self-preservation is not a defense in the fear sense. Self-preservation is a defense in an active protection, active, self-sustaining, self-efficient sense. Planting a garden, working with nature, living with nature. And while these things that we build are nice, they're not really necessary. Okay? You see what I mean? They're nice. You can build them, but they're not necessary. What is necessary is already provided to us by nature. Now, some would argue and say, well, since nature provided wood, we used the wood to create houses, and then from houses we went to concrete or hempcrete. And it's like, yes, okay, and that is good. A shelter is necessary. A place to go back to is necessary. Necessary because you can enjoy. It has a lot of benefits. You can stay dry, for example, if it rains. You can stay warm if it's cold, but you can do that outside too. You can stay dry outside as well if you create something, or if you create maybe, I don't know, an armor or a suit or even like a little dome. Okay, either way, yes, these are great, but they are not necessary in the sense of, how do I put this? Because I know for a lot of you, when I'm saying necessary, it sounds a little confusing. It sounds a little contradictory. When I say necessary, I mean in the sense of that these things that we create determine what is possible and determine our potential to thrive. And they shouldn't determine our potential to thrive. They reflect our potential to thrive, but when they become a determination of thrival. So in other words, it's like saying, I'm going to build a house. This is the perfect example. This is how I can clarify it for you guys. I'm going to build this structure. And this structure, we're going to use it because we're going to use this structure as a way to stay dry, to stay warm, right? Okay, cool. All right, we're going to invite other people. We're going to teach other people to do it. But here's what economists and greedy or monopolists do, right? They say, well, damn, if we build more of those, then people could come to us. Oh, man, and then we have the control. Now we have a power, we have a certain kind of control or influence over the people. And then they turn that into dollars so that they can exclude themselves to seem very important or more important than thou. All right. So how does that reflect on these constructs? Okay. Housing markets. All right. So you have housing markets, you have food markets. Things are great. Yeah, a market for food where people could come and get food, but it's been turned into, how do I say it? It's been turned into an economic uh, gain, okay, for a select few people. And that gain has been turned into a game, a monopoly, okay? And many things have been turned into a monopoly. So, yes, we create a dome to stay dry, for example. And that dome is so that others can learn how to use that, and so others can learn how to create one for themselves too, right? But if I go ahead and I say, well, look, that's amazing. Now let's go ahead and let's capitalize on it, or let's turn it into some kind of like control. Now the thing that's a necessity, okay, that was born out of a necessity, now your necessity for that thing is determined by the value that's been put on it and by someone or some people controlling it. See the difference there? So if the necessity was to build something to stay dry and warm, then the necessity is what gave birth to the construct, okay? But when the construct now is the determination for whether you can have the necessity, that it got flipped. We lost our way. People lost their way. Certain people lost their way, because I certainly have not, okay? And that's what the key distinction we have to look. And that's why we have to realize that that's a concept that's based, and those things, those methodologies of economy based off of self-preservation, that has to be flipped right back. It cannot be that something that is made for necessity is now only available when certain things, or in other words, when this thing called money is available. Okay? So that way, then the person can get what they need. No, nature already gave us what we need. Well, who are we to try to now resell what nature gave us all, or try to capitalize or try to monopolize on what nature gave all of us? Who the hell is you? Who the hell is anybody to try to resell and commodify and monopolize what nature already gives to everybody? See how stupid that is. This is why I don't listen to several people, because the intelligence, it really begs to differ. It really makes you question. Okay, it really makes me question. Like, really, what I don't, sometimes when I see people who harbor on such things and can't see past that, I'm like, what are you? Because you don't seem human to me. You don't seem like intelligent either. You seem pretty darn robotic or cloned or maybe lab grown. It's that serious. All right, y'all, that's all I have for the video. Hope y'all learned something, okay? Feel free to share. Feel free to subscribe. Share this, y'all. It's important to know this, all right? Because I know there are people who really understand what I'm saying. So share it with other people who you know understand what you're saying, who share in a similar spirit, so we can continue to work together, grow together, to reconnect ourselves back to a life of self-sustainability, infinite creativity, infinite fun, and lots of sexy battle time, and lots of good plant-based foods and fun and joy and creativity and self-sustainability. Yeah, namaste, peace.